You have decided to try fasting. Perhaps you read an article that convinced you. Perhaps a friend's transformation caught your attention. Perhaps you simply felt that constant eating was not serving your body the way it once did. Whatever brought you here, you have arrived at a question that seems simple but actually contains enormous complexity. How long should you fast? The internet offers contradictory answers. Some sources advocate for modest time-restricted eating, perhaps 12 or 14 hours without food. Others champion the 16-hour fast as the gold standard. Still others describe multi-day fasts with enthusiastic claims about transformation and renewal. You encounter numbers that seem arbitrary, durations that range from mildly inconvenient to genuinely challenging, and little guidance about which approach suits your particular situation. The confusion stems from a fundamental truth that most discussions obscure. Different fasting durations activate different biological processes and serve different purposes. There is no single correct fasting length, because there is no single goal that fasting serves. The person seeking fat loss has different needs than the person seeking longevity support. The person with significant weight to lose has different requirements than the person maintaining an already healthy body composition. The question is not simply how long to fast, but what you are trying to accomplish, and which duration serves that specific purpose. Let me walk you through what actually happens in your body as hours without food accumulate. This timeline of physiological events explains why different durations produce different results. Once you understand the biology, the appropriate fasting length for your goals becomes much clearer. To understand fasting, you must first understand what happens when you eat. This may seem like a digression, but the fed state is the baseline against which the fasting state is defined. Every meal initiates a cascade of metabolic events that must complete before fasting's benefits can begin. When food enters your system, particularly if that food contains carbohydrates, your blood sugar rises. This rise triggers insulin release from your pancreas. Insulin is the hormone that allows glucose to enter cells and be used for energy, but insulin is also a storage hormone. When insulin is elevated, your body prioritizes storing excess energy rather than burning stored energy. Fat burning is essentially blocked while insulin is active. The duration of this fed state depends on what you ate and how much. A large meal high in carbohydrates can keep insulin elevated for many hours. A smaller, lower carbohydrate meal allows insulin to fall more quickly. But regardless of the specific meal, some period must pass after eating before your body shifts from processing incoming energy to accessing stored energy. You cannot be storing and burning fat simultaneously. The signals are mutually exclusive. Most people in modern societies never allow this fed state to fully resolve before eating again. They eat breakfast, which elevates insulin. Before insulin has returned to baseline, they eat a snack, then lunch, then another snack, then dinner, perhaps something before bed. The pattern creates perpetual elevation of the storage signal, perpetual suppression of the burning signal, perpetual fat accumulation, even in people who feel they are eating modest amounts. This explains the frustration many people experience. They feel they are not overeating. They have reduced portions, chosen healthier foods, made genuine efforts, yet weight continues accumulating or refuses to decrease. The problem is not necessarily the quantity or quality of food. The problem is the constant eating pattern that never allows the body to switch from storage mode to burning mode. They are trapped in a fed state that only extended periods without food can escape. The switch from storage to burning, from fed state to fasting state, occurs at a certain point after your last meal. The exact timing varies by individual, by meal composition, by metabolic health. But for most people, the transition begins somewhere between 8 and 12 hours after eating. Before this point, you are still processing your meal. After this point, you begin accessing stored energy. This is why the concept of a minimum fasting duration matters. If you eat dinner at 8 in the evening and breakfast at 8 in the morning, you have achieved roughly 12 hours without food. For some people, in some circumstances, this may be sufficient to reach the beginning of the fasting state. For others, particularly those with insulin resistance or those who ate a large dinner, 12 hours may barely reach the transition point. They eat again just as their body was about to switch modes, perpetuating the cycle they are trying to escape. The first meaningful threshold in fasting benefits occurs around 13 hours without food. At this point, for most people, the fed state has fully resolved. Blood sugar has stabilized at baseline. Insulin has fallen to fasting levels. the body has begun shifting its fuel source from incoming food to stored energy. This is when certain hormonal changes begin that set the stage for the benefits people seek from fasting. Growth hormone, which supports fat burning and tissue repair, begins rising during this period. Growth hormone promotes the breakdown of fat stores for energy. It supports the maintenance of muscle tissue even as calories are restricted. It has been associated with anti-aging effects, with tissue regeneration, with the general vitality that people report when fasting becomes a regular practice. At the same time, insulin remains low, which allows fat cells to release their stored energy. The two hormones work together. Insulin falling removes the lock on fat cells, while growth hormone rising activates the machinery that processes released fat for energy. This hormonal combination is what produces the fat-burning state that makes fasting valuable for body composition. If your goal is modest fat loss, general metabolic improvement, and the hormonal benefits of regular time-restricted eating, fasting periods in the 12 to 14-hour range may be sufficient. This is a gentle entry point. It requires only skipping late-night eating and delaying breakfast slightly. It fits into most lifestyles without dramatic disruption. For someone transitioning from constant eating to intentional time restriction, this duration provides benefits while building the foundation for longer fasts if desired. Extending the fast to approximately 16 hours activates additional processes that shorter fasts do not fully engage. This is where a phenomenon called autophagy begins to accelerate. Autophagy, which translates roughly as self-eating, is the cellular cleanup process by which your cells identify damaged components, dysfunctional proteins, accumulated waste material, and break them down for recycling or elimination. Think of autophagy as the maintenance crew that works best when the factory is quiet. During the fed state, your cells are busy processing incoming nutrients, building new proteins, conducting the business of energy production and growth. The maintenance that keeps cells functioning optimally gets deferred. When feeding stops and the factory quiets, the maintenance crew can finally do its work. Damaged mitochondria are dismantled, misfolded proteins are recycled, accumulated debris is cleared. This cellular housekeeping has profound implications for long-term health. Accumulated cellular damage is associated with aging, with cancer development, with neurodegenerative diseases. The clearance of this damage through autophagy may slow aging processes, reduce disease risk, and maintain cellular function at higher levels than would otherwise be possible. Animal studies on caloric restriction and fasting consistently show longevity benefits, and autophagy is believed to be a primary mechanism explaining these effects. The 16-hour fast has become popular precisely because it combines accessibility with meaningful biological activation. It requires discipline, but remains achievable within normal social patterns. Skip breakfast, eat lunch and dinner within an 8-hour window, and you have achieved 16 hours of fasting with all the hormonal and cellular benefits that duration provides. Many people find this pattern sustainable indefinitely, a lifestyle rather than a temporary diet, a permanent shift in eating patterns that serves them for years. The range between 16 and 24 hours represents what many practitioners consider the sweet spot for regular fasting practice. During this window, all the processes that began earlier continue intensifying. Fat burning accelerates as stored energy increasingly becomes the primary fuel source. Growth hormone continues rising, autophagy deepens, insulin sensitivity improves as cells adapt to the fasting state. The metabolic benefits compound. This duration works particularly well for people seeking significant fat loss while maintaining the practice long term. It is aggressive enough to produce meaningful results, yet moderate enough to sustain without burnout. Many people alternate between different durations within this range, perhaps 16 hours on some days and 20 or 22 hours on others, introducing the variation that prevents metabolic adaptation while maintaining the overall fasting lifestyle. If you have substantial weight to lose, if fat loss is your primary goal, the 16 to 24 hour range deserves your attention. Regular fasting at these durations, combined with appropriate eating during feeding windows, can produce the kind of transformations that diet alone rarely achieves. I have seen people lose significant amounts of weight through this approach, when nothing else seemed to work for them. The shift from constant eating to structured fasting changed their metabolic environment so fundamentally that their bodies finally began releasing the stored energy they had accumulated over years. What happens when fasting extends beyond a full day? The biology shifts again. After approximately 24 hours, the body increasingly relies on deeper fat stores for energy. The readily accessible fat has been tapped. Now the body must mobilize reserves it typically protects more carefully. This is when people sometimes describe feeling that stubborn fat is finally moving, that areas resistant to shorter fasts are beginning to respond. The 24 to 36 hour range pushes deeper into fat-burning territory. Ketone production increases substantially as the liver processes fat into fuel the brain can use. The metabolic switch that began earlier is now fully engaged. The body has adapted to the reality that no food is coming and has shifted its entire energy economy to run on stored fuel. Extended fasting at these durations is not meant for daily practice. It represents a tool to use periodically, perhaps once a week or once a month, to access benefits that shorter daily fasts do not achieve. The person who generally practices 16-hour daily fasts might occasionally extend to 24 or 36 hours for deeper fat loss or more profound autophagy stimulation. The variation prevents adaptation while allowing access to benefits across the full spectrum of fasting durations. For people with significant weight to lose, periodic extended fasts can accelerate progress dramatically. The mathematics of fat loss at these durations is compelling. A day without food means a day when all energy must come from stored sources. The body cannot pull that energy from nowhere, it must come from fat. Extended fasting forces the body to solve its energy problem by doing exactly what you want it to do, burning stored fat. I should mention the experiences of people who have achieved remarkable transformations through fasting. These are not rare cases. They are common enough that any practitioner encounters them regularly. People who lost 50, 80, over 100 pounds. People whose relationship with food and their bodies changed fundamentally. People who tried everything, who felt their situations were hopeless, who discovered that restructuring when they ate, rather than constantly restricting what they ate, finally produced results. These stories are not magic, they are physiology. The people who transformed their bodies did so by creating metabolic environments where transformation was possible. They stopped eating constantly and started allowing their bodies to access stored energy. They pushed through the initial discomfort of adapting to fasting until it became comfortable. They built fasting into their lives as a sustainable practice rather than a temporary punishment. When fasting extends to multiple days, additional processes activate that do not appear during shorter fasts. Research suggests that after approximately 48 to 72 hours without food, stem cell activity increases. The body appears to initiate regenerative processes, producing new cells to replace those that have been cleared through autophagy. This is sometimes described as a reset or a renewal, though these metaphors simplify complex biology. The stem cell effects observed in some research remain an active area of investigation. The science is not fully settled, but the findings suggest that very extended fasts may trigger regenerative processes that shorter fasts do not activate. For people interested in anti-aging and immune system renewal in the deepest possible cellular effects, occasional multi-day fasts may provide benefits that cannot be accessed any other way. Multi-day fasting is not for everyone and should not be undertaken casually. It requires understanding of how to fast safely, how to break a fast appropriately, how to recognize when something is wrong versus when discomfort is normal adaptation. People with certain health conditions should not attempt extended fasts. Those taking certain medications need medical guidance. The longer the fast, the more preparation and knowledge become essential. For most people seeking general health benefits, the sweet spot remains in the 16 to 24-hour range for regular practice, with occasional extensions beyond that for deeper effects. This approach provides access to the major benefits of fasting, without the complexity and risk that very extended fasts introduce. It is sustainable, flexible, and produces meaningful results for the goals most people have. The question of how long to fast ultimately depends on what you are trying to accomplish. Let me map the different goals to the durations that best serve them. If your goal is basic metabolic improvement, blood sugar regulation, and a gentle introduction to fasting, 12 to 14 hours provides meaningful benefits with minimal disruption. This duration suits people who are new to fasting, who want to ease into the practice, who are already at a healthy weight and seeking maintenance rather than transformation. If your goal is fat loss, longevity support, autophagy activation, and the hormonal optimization that comes from regular fasting, 16 to 20 hours serves these purposes well. This is the range where most people find their sustainable practice, the duration that fits their lives while providing the benefits they seek. It is aggressive enough to produce results, yet moderate enough to maintain indefinitely. If your goal is significant weight loss, breaking through plateaus, or accessing stubborn fat that shorter fasts have not touched, periodic extensions to 24 to 36 hours can provide the additional push needed. These longer fasts are not daily practices but periodic interventions that deepen the effects of regular fasting. If your goal includes the potential regenerative effects that research associates with very extended fasting, occasional multi-day fasts under appropriate guidance may serve purposes that shorter durations cannot achieve. This is the realm of significant intervention rather than routine practice, suitable for specific purposes under careful consideration. The progression through these durations should generally be gradual rather than abrupt. Someone who has never fasted should not jump immediately to multi-day fasts. The body needs time to adapt. The metabolic machinery that processes stored fat efficiently develops with practice. The hunger signals that feel overwhelming at first diminish as the body learns that fasting is normal and safe. Start with what is accessible. If you currently eat constantly from morning to night, begin by establishing a 12-hour eating window. Get comfortable with that duration before extending. Once 12 hours feels natural, push to 14, then 16. Build the capacity progressively. The body adapts to demands placed on it, and fasting capacity is no exception. People who have practiced fasting for months or years describe a transformation in their relationship with hunger. The panic that once accompanied missed meals disappears. The ability to go extended periods without food becomes unremarkable. The energy and clarity that fasting provides becomes so familiar that eating outside their normal window feels strange. They have rebuilt their metabolic identity from constant eater to comfortable faster. This adaptation explains why fasting becomes easier over time. The difficulty you experience initially is not permanent. It reflects a body accustomed to constant feeding, a metabolism that expects regular incoming energy, a nervous system that interprets food absence as emergency. All of this can change. The body can learn that fasting is normal, that stored energy is available, that hunger is a signal to ignore rather than a command to obey. The first week of fasting practice is the hardest. The second week is easier. By the third and fourth weeks, what seemed impossible becomes routine. I encourage people to commit to at least 30 days of consistent practice before evaluating whether fasting works for them. The early difficulties are not representative of the long-term experience. Judging fasting by the first week is like judging exercise by the soreness after your first workout. The initial response does not predict the eventual relationship. The broader principle underlying everything I have described is that the body possesses remarkable healing and regulatory capacities that constant eating suppresses. When you eat continuously, your body spends its resources on digestion, absorption, processing, storage. The maintenance and repair processes get crowded out. The cleanup crews never get to work. The factory runs perpetually at production speed without downtime for maintenance. Fasting provides that downtime. It removes the constant demand for food processing and allows the body to redirect resources toward repair, cleanup, and optimization. This is not a new intervention. This is the condition under which humans evolved. Our ancestors did not have access to constant calories. They experienced regular periods without food, and their bodies developed sophisticated systems to thrive during these periods. We inherit those systems. They remain functional. They merely need the conditions they evolved for to activate. Modern life has created conditions our biology did not anticipate. Constant food availability, eating opportunities at every hour, the social expectation that meals should be frequent and snacks should fill every gap. These conditions prevent the activation of repair systems that remain ready to function whenever we stop eating long enough to let them. Choosing to fast is choosing to provide your body with conditions it knows how to use. It is not deprivation or punishment. It is the restoration of a natural rhythm that constant eating has disrupted. Your body knows what to do during a fast. It has been waiting for the opportunity. All you must do is stop eating long enough for those processes to engage. The specific duration that serves you best depends on factors unique to your situation. Your current metabolic health, your goals, your lifestyle constraints, your willingness to experience temporary discomfort, the amount of weight you want to lose or whether weight loss is even a goal, the health concerns you are trying to address, the longevity focus that may or may not matter to you. There is no single answer to how long you should fast because there is no single version of you or your goals. What I have provided is a map of the territory, an explanation of what happens at different durations, a guide to matching durations with purposes. The application of this knowledge to your specific situation requires your own judgment and perhaps experimentation. I recommend starting with a duration that challenges you slightly without overwhelming you. Practice that duration until it becomes comfortable. Then consider whether extending serves your goals. Build progressively. Discover, through direct experience, what your body responds to, how different durations feel, what results they produce. The map I have provided is useful, but your own exploration is what ultimately guides you to the practice that serves you best. Some people discover they feel optimal with modest daily fasting and never need to extend beyond 16 hours. Others discover that periodic longer fasts produce breakthroughs that shorter durations cannot achieve. Some people use different durations for different purposes at different times in their lives. The flexibility of fasting as a practice allows this personalization. It is not a rigid protocol, but a tool you can use in various ways for various purposes. The question you brought to this discussion was how long you should fast for maximum health benefits. The answer is that maximum benefits come not from a single duration, but from matching duration to purpose and maintaining the practice consistently over time. The person who fasts 16 hours daily for years accumulates more benefit than the person who does one 36-hour fast and returns to constant eating. Consistency matters more than extremity. Sustainability matters more than intensity. Choose a duration you can maintain. Practice it until it becomes natural. Extend occasionally if your goals warrant. Build fasting into your life as a permanent practice rather than a temporary intervention. Allow time for adaptation and for benefits to accumulate. Trust the biological processes that fasting activates, knowing that your body possesses healing capacities that constant eating has been suppressing. The benefits are real. The science is substantial. The experiences of millions of practitioners confirm what research suggests. Fasting works because it provides conditions the human body evolved to use. The duration that works for you is the duration that fits your goals, your life, and your willingness to practice consistently. You asked how long to fast for maximum health benefits. The better question might be, what do you want to achieve, and are you willing to practice fasting consistently enough to achieve it? The duration follows from the answers to those questions. The benefits follow from the practice. The practice follows from your decision to begin and your commitment to continue. Start where you are, go as long as serves your purpose. Maintain the practice over time. Watch what happens when you stop eating long enough for your body to remember what it knows how to do. The healing capacity is already there. The repair systems are ready. The fat-burning machinery is functional. They are all simply waiting for the opportunity that fasting provides. Your body will show you what it is capable of when you give it the conditions it evolved to use. All the hours without food that seemed like deprivation are actually opportunity. The hunger that seemed like emergency is actually signal. The discomfort that seemed like failure is actually adaptation. Everything shifts when you understand what fasting actually is. Not punishment, but restoration. Not deprivation, but activation. Not suffering, but healing. The duration is the variable you control. The biology is the constant that responds. Match the variable to your purpose and maintain it long enough for the biology to work. That is how long you should fast. That is how you access maximum benefits. That is how you discover what your body can do when you finally allow it.